The fight against Cobra goes on as I cover the covers for G.I. Joe issues 51 through 100 from the Marvel series. Yo, Joe! Hey everyone, my name is Bernie Gonzalez. I am a comic book writer and artist, and in these videos, I just want to go over some of the books, the comics, graphic novels, art books that have influenced my style, my storytelling, and in this video, I'm going to go over G.I. Joe numbers 51 through 100. As an 80s kid, as someone who grew up in the 80s, G.I. Joe was very important to me. The cartoon, the comics, and in this specific case, the series ran from Marvel for 155 issues. It was very different than the cartoon, whereas in the cartoon, essentially it was a commercial for the toys, and the idea was to drag your parents through the toy aisle to try to buy the figures, the vehicles, the headquarters. In the comics, thanks to primarily Larry Hama, it had more of a serious tone. You had real guns rather than laser rifles. Characters that were kind of background characters in the cartoon were in the spotlight in the comics, and it featured a number of different well-known comic book artists on these covers, at least, which is what we're going to go over, including Herb Trimpe, Todd McFarlane, Marshall Rogers, Lee Weeks, Andrew Wildman towards the end of the series. But you also had Russ Heath, known for different combat comics he did, and DC Comics, Don Perlin, who worked on Werewolf by Night, co-creator Moon Knight, Defenders, Ghost Rider, Ron Garney, who worked on Spider-Man, Silver Surfer, Hulk, Daredevil, JLA, Frank Springer, who worked on Nick Fury, very similar tone to what would eventually become G.I. Joe. So let's go through some of these covers, and just, from an artist standpoint, and actually from a little bit of nostalgia, I'm just going to go over some of these. And this one we're going to start with 51. Right off the bat, got the Dreadnoks, that's Ripper with the chainsaw. Buzzer with the chainsaw, Ripper with the gun, with the knife at the end there. We've got Torch, and they are in the Thunder Machine. Cool cover. Dreadnoughts, ironically, have a lot of covers on a lot of these G.I. Joe comics. Kind of interesting. All right, next one, number 52, Storm Shadow, Quicksilver. If I'm correct, I think it's the Arashagi or Arashike clan that Storm Shadow's a part of. I don't know if they ever established Quick Kick as being a part of any of that, but just cool cover, two figures, two characters that I really loved going right after each other. Pretty awesome. All right, issue number 53. So November 1986, you've got all the Marvel covers. They had this same frame. This here highlighting a lot of these Marvel characters. I am assuming it was either a gimmick for an anniversary of some sort, but just kind of neat. Of course, they would pick Snake Eyes. If you're going to pick a character to highlight, that makes sense. And again, talking November 1986, it was the airing of the last episode of season 2 of the cartoon that introduced Serpentor. I think it was Arise, Serpentor Arise. At that point, they're introducing new toys, Sergeant Slaughter. So end of the cartoon, and now we're on issue 53 of the Marvel series. Issue 54, got Flint parachuting in. An awesome cover, love this. Got the Terrordrome there, one of those playsets that I never had. Had cousins and neighbors and friends who had it, and I was always very jealous, but love the composition. You've got the fire bat flying out of the Terrordrome, going after Flint. As a kid, if you're seeing this on the shelf of Venture, Kmart, Woolworth, which is where I would get my comics, can't help but want to pick this up because you want to know what's going to happen. Plane got shut down. Obviously, he's going to be in trouble. Got to find out what's going to happen. All right, issue number 55. Look at that cover right there. Unmasking. Destro, Snake Eyes, Cobra Commander. If I'm correct, Destro and Cobra Commander are unmasked, and they see each other for the first time. And they also start introducing Cobra Commander's son, Billy. That, again, not part of the cartoon series. It was part of the comic book series that, delved deeper into the drama, into romance, into action as well, but started really digging into Cobra and their past and different characters. And a cover like this, I mean, it's just enticing. You got to love this because characters that were underneath the mask, if you wanted to know what was going to happen in this issue, if you're an editor, if you're an artist, great job in selecting this as your cover. All right, issue 56. Nice composition. Flint's in the foreground there, Scarlet, Roadblock, getting attacked by Cobra. 57. Destro, Flint, Lady J. I believe by around this time, they're already establishing the fact that Flint and Lady J have a romance, kind of like this flirtiness, the banter that you would see in the cartoon. Well, you know, they kind of take it to the next level in the comic book series because you can. 58. Look at that. We got Cobra Commander. Believe that's his son Billy in the background. We get the reveal of Cobra Commander's new battle armor and another excuse for a brand new action figure. And I believe it's Mike Zeck of Punisher fame who did the cover here. Nice composition. Love the pink against the green and against this kind of teal. Just works really well. And again, if you see this, if you have this figure, great. You're reading the comic and you love the fact that you've got the file card, the figure for the new Cobra Commander. But if you don't, perfect excuse to see what this is all about. 59. So you've got the first appearance in this issue of Tunnel Rat, Outback, Raptor. They introduce Blind Master and Jinx. So you're already moving into that second wave of G.I. Joes. Get another awesome Mike Zeck cover. But you've got, again, new toy line, new figures, new vehicles, all being introduced. Love the design here. The yellow background, nice, not distracting. Just very easy to kind of take in and realize that you want to find out what's going on with these new characters. Issue 60, talk about new characters. First appearance of Law & Order, Falcon, Chuckles, and then the new Dreadnoks they introduced, Monkey Wrench and Zanzibar. And I remember I had that figure as a kid with the air skiff, which was just a really cool kind of hovercraft looking thing. But it was just a neat vehicle. He was a neat looking character, had that sort of feel of like a pirate dreadnought kind of thing. But just cool overall. All right, issue 61. Love this cover. Just love the fact that it's got the spotlight on there. Very dramatic, barbed wire. They're literally cornered. You don't know what's going to happen. Interiors by Todd McFarlane of Spawn and Spider-Man fame. But again, Stalker, a character that was in the background for the most part in the cartoon, highlighted in the comic book series. Snow Job and Quick Kick there, but cover composition is great, and you got to find out what's going to happen. Only way to do that, you got to buy the comic. 62. From the previous issue where they're cornered, now on this cover you've got Stalker, Snake Eyes, Quick Kick. Obviously, the events of the last issue did not fare well for them, so they seem to be on some sort of railway to some sort of camp. They're prisoners. You get a lot of drama. Gotta love this. Just really cool. 63. I think this is from 1987 at this point. Another Mike Zeck cover and two fan favorites. Certainly a favorite of mine, Snake Eyes and Scarlet. Love the drawing. I love the little setup here. Danger, Minefield. Feels like the UPC, and this is for the direct-to-market. If not, it would have a barcode on it. But just feels like this was, maybe move the Minefield sign over there so it doesn't get obstructed by the UPC. But just love this. The fact that it's not distracting. Just get that little bit of texture for the sky to add a little bit of rendering. But for the most part, the focus is on these two characters going through the beginning of what seems to be a minefield, and they're not aware of it. So you want to find out what's going to happen to them. Issue 64, Ron Wagner art. Got the Baroness, Cobra Commander, and Serpentor. And by this point, I think they already start establishing the fact that this may not be the Cobra Commander that we remember from the cartoon series or even from the comics early on, that there is somebody else underneath that hood. 65. Got the introduction of G.I. Joe in space. Believe that's the Defiant. I think that's Payload. Not sure what Cobra vehicle that was, but by this point, again, they're introducing more figures, more playsets, more vehicles, and G.I. Joe in space seems like a logical progression. If you can have tanks, if you can have planes, why not have a shuttle? So now we're starting to venture off into orbit. 66. just good composition. Again, two fan favorites, Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow. I love this. Seems to be same storyline from before, where you've got Stalker, Snow Job, and Quick Kick under some sort of prisoner there, and you've got Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes seemingly trying to help them escape. What I really like is this in the foreground, you've got the barbed wire there, just kind of a neat little trick, just kind of separates the fact that you have a foreground element, a middle ground element in the characters outside the window, then a background element as they're peeking inside, just as we are. Just really cool composition. 67, mentioned before, the romance between Flint and Lady J was much more pronounced in the comics, and in this case, we get Lady J slugging Flint, who you could barely tell, but for the beret that he was known for having. But again, it's an okay cover. The spotlight and stuff is kind of nice, but it's okay. All right, 68. Look at this here. So I believe this is the introduction of Battle Force 2000. And if you're familiar with the toys, you had more high-tech weaponry and vehicles that were being introduced. The idea was that this Battle Force 2000 group was testing out experimental weaponry for G.I. Joe. Again, another excuse to sell more toys, but cool cover composition. You've got this cargo plane dropping off all the figures, all the characters, Baroness and his tanks flanking them. Just cool. Ron Wagner on the cover there too. 69, talking about excuses for new figures. You've got the introduction of Destro's army, the Iron Grenadiers, that had, they weren't too far off from the look of Cobra and the Vipers and the soldiers. But in this case, it feels a little bit more regal, a little bit more Dr. Doom-esque with the cape. And now he's gone from the silver, the chrome, to a gold. So, Destro's stepping up his game, but he's got his own army, because now we're starting to get into this idea that maybe there is a schism, there's a civil war internally between Cobra Commander and Destro. All right, issue 70, Wild Bill, gun to his head. Looks like he's almost about to crash, probably behind the stick of the Dragonfly. Issue 71, got Zorana, Monkey Wrench. Pretty sure that's Thrasher, one of the two, forget. But, seems to be focusing on Dreadnoughts there that, again, get a lot of cover spotlights, surprisingly so. 72, got Tunnel Rat. I think this is the first appearance of Crocmaster, who, again, you go down the aisle as a kid, and hate to admit it, but G.I. Joe's had really cool figures, cool designs, but the Cobra figures always just look so much cooler. Crimson Guard, Storm Shadow, Zartan, Destro, Cobra Commander, the soldiers, versus G.I. Joe that, yes, looked cool, but for the most part, it just couldn't really compete with the designs of Cobra. And Crocmaster was one of those cool, Wave 2 type figures that just looked really cool. Plus, he came with a crocodile. 73. All right, I think that's Mainframe, probably with the new redesign with the red on there instead of just like the white and gray that he had originally. Let's see here. This is the beginning of the Cobra Civil War, and Falcon, Gung Ho, Tunnel Rat, and I believe they're going into Cobra Island. Speaking of that, 74, again, the Cobra Civil War, G.I. Joe's kind of in the middle of this, but if I remember right, in issue 74, let's see if I'm right here, pretty sure, there is, wait for it, gotta love these old pages, yeah, there it is, if you can see that there, it is an actual map of Cobra Island, and if I've learned anything in my life is that maps always make everything better, but you get talk about the Cobra Schism, you get the kind of breakdown between who everyone is. Serpentor, Crocmaster has now been leveled up. He's the head of security. You've got who the Vipers are. Baroness is in charge of operations. Zartan, table of organizations for G.I. Joe. As a kid, you're reading this and you're just taking all this in because this is amazing. Just had some cool background, but the fact that they actually have a map of Cobra Island, love it. All right, issue 75. This one I think also has a map, but you're starting to see the fact that Cobra Civil War has some casualties. Baroness seems to be in prisoner there. You've got Serpentor, and he's got his army, got the bats there driving the hiss. Love it, awesome. And the friendlies in the background, can't beat that. Good design. 76. I love these issues, and I wish this is a case where you wish there was a smell-o-vision, because they just have a specific smell, a specific texture these older comics do. And you know, I have all of these. Some of them I had when I originally bought them as a kid. A lot of them I bought along the way over the years to fill in the gaps. But as you can see, they're not in bags and boards. I just have no desire to do that. I just love the fact that I can pick them up, read them, not care about collectivity or condition. I just want to have them just like I did when I was a kid. I try to enjoy them, and you know, you grab a few issues, you read them, and it's still a great fun read. And the fact that they're so much more mature, so different than the cartoon, they feel like two separate things, which is kind of neat. All right, let's get back into it. 76. This one, the Cobra Civil War is going on. G.I. Joe, again, is kind of in the middle. I'm pretty sure in this one, Zartan, spoiler alert, is killed. It actually kills Serpentor with an arrow. And again, good cover here, but kind of hiding the lead if you're reading the issue. 77. Looks like a girl fight. Lady J, Zorana. Can't say I love the composition or the figure work there, but it's okay. Versus something like this one, 78, where again you just got this highlight of Roadblock. Could be Zap, not 100% sure. Pretty sure that's Cover Girl, but Ron Wagner on the cover art, just really neat looking. The guns, the foreshadow, the what is it, foreshortening, just all looks really cool. And I love the fact that on these covers they were smart enough just not to get too busy with the backgrounds. This just pops. If you're 6 feet away from a comic shelf, from a newsstand, the red would just pop because it's so it's not distracting. So love this cover for its simplicity, but also for it's just kind of iconic, kind of neat. 79. I think one of the few instances where I can remember a word balloon being on the cover. And again, another example where the Dreadnoughts are getting a lot of love on these covers. I mean, I get it. They're cool. They sound really cool in the cartoon. Just surprised how much covers they are featured on. And 80. All right, we're talking about, I think this is still Battle Force 2000. Got some of the Joes here, and I think that's the Vector Jet. Not sure what vehicle that was. Not a great cover. If you're selling toys, looks fine. 81. Talk about not great covers. Can't say I really love this design too much. Battle Force 2000 versus the Dreadnoughts. That's okay. All right. Here's a good cover. I think that's Repeater, one of the Joes in those latter waves with a Viper. I mean, again, the kind of tone that you would not get in the cartoon. Love the composition. Seems like it's a Ron Wagner. Repeater shooting in the foreground at something, completely oblivious to the fact that the Viper's behind him. And one of the cool Vipers that, not really sure why they had the goggles on top of the chrome, but still, just cool design. And I like some of the brushwork on these trees. Simple, but effective. 83. One of the Dreadnoughts, Road Pig. Again, a cool yellow highlight there, but still wondering why the Dreadnoughts got so much love. 84. Cobra Commander, Zartan in the background there. This is where I think they start revealing the fact that Snake Eyes and Cobra Commander, who in this case, again, another spoiler alert, is actually Billy or Fred or something, I forget. It's Cobra Commander's son. They have some sort of connection. So you've got Red Ninjas there, the clan that Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow belong to, all kind of woven in at the same time. Kind of neat. You know, love it looks like a lava pit, something that you could only see in a comic book. Issue 85. So issue 21 of G.I. Joe is known as being the silent issue, and even yearbook 3 has a silent story in it. This one is actually known for, well, not only you get the cool kind of like urban camouflage, I don't know what to call it, for Snake Eyes, for Storm Shadow, and he's got the bow and arrow, but this issue is completely only told in sound effects. Look at that Airwolf ad. Makes sense in this. So you only get sound effects. Kind of neat. Might have to go over that in a separate video. All right, now we get into what is 86, 25th anniversary of G.I. Joe. Of course, not of the comic book, but when the actual toy line, the original toy line that were more like dolls instead of the 3 3/4 figures, were released in the 80s. And in this issue, you focus on the original Joe, the guy who was the namesake for this unit. And you've got Duke, I think that's Muskrat, Shockwave. He had a really cool gun. I really liked him. He's kind of like a urban SWAT team guy. And Stalker. And yeah, there we go. 1963. So celebrating that. So kind of neat. 87. Destro, Iron Grenadiers, new toys. Pretty sure I had one of those. It was just kind of this neat futuristic looking vehicle, aircraft. Very different from everything else that they'd released. 88. You have the Python Patrol. G.I. Joe versus Python Patrol. Python Patrol was just, I think, another excuse to sell more toys. They were Cobra's elite unit, but they were just recolored versions of existing figures from what I remember. 89. Yeah, it's okay. Can't say I love that cover. Same here. 90. Got Road Pig. Pretty sure that's Rock and Roll and Clutch. And I think they take Clutch into some sort of brainwave scanner to get some information out of them. All right, here we go. 91. Andy Kubert, Storm Shadow. We've got the ninjas, red ninjas there. Pretty sure that's Jinx, Scarlet. Awesome cover. Just the composition, everything. So good. 92. Thunderclap, October Guard, Beauty Pageant. Meh cover. But do kind of like this, the fact that they had the cannon fire almost completely through it. So in each issue, they almost had different cover treatments for the logo. So kind of cool what they did there. 93. This is a prelude to the Snake Eyes trilogy, where we start trying to figure out more information about him. And in this case, you got the broken file, subject, Snake Eyes. 94. Snake Eyes Trilogy Part 1, Warrior Reborn. Snake Eyes is actually going to get plastic surgery, a reconstructive surgery to his face, a character that's been in under mystery for pretty much the entire time in the cartoon, for sure. But in the comic books, as they've developed his background, we get a little bit more information about him. So now he gets an entire trilogy with another Andy Kubert cover. If I remember correctly, during this whole thing, Scarlet ends up getting shot in the head by the Baroness and goes into a coma. So obviously much more mature than you would see in the comic book. 96, third and last part of the Snake Eyes trilogy. Again, you have Storm Shadow and that camo with the hood. Because if you already thought he was cool in a ninja outfit, put a hood on him and then he can only be better. It is kind of interesting that these patterns here almost looks like they were placed on top of the line work of the inks instead of underneath. Doesn't look like it's some sort of the kind of manga type texture that you might have underneath where they cut. It seems like it was just slapped on top, but it works, but kind of interesting. Maybe Andy Kubert, who was working on this after Hama, Larry Hama might have sketched out the design for this, and Kubert just kind of finished it. But kind of an interesting technique there. 97. Kubert still on the art chores for the cover. Awesome looking rock and roll with some sort of Mounties. I guess that makes sense. I mean, if G.I. Joe works, then why not have Canadian Mounties in there as well? 98. Lee Weeks on the cover here. Got Condor, Mindbender, Zartan. Believe that is Cobra Commander's son, Billy. And this is, of course, the return. But we thought you were dead. Cobra Commander ends up, he is back. 99. Two Joes have been brainwashed by Cobra. And I think that goes back to the whole rock and roll Clutch being dragged by Road Pig cover. And they're about to enter the pit. Lee Weeks on the cover. Okay design. I do like the pink there. I mean, when you look at a comic shelf, a lot of what you see is browns and blues and grays. So it's kind of nice to see something that would definitely differentiate itself on the newsstand. And we're at issue 100. Cobra Commander is back. Definitely got the kind of more regal designs there with the darker blue, almost like a nice navy blue. Got the logo for Cobra in the background, giant size 100 issue. Cobra Commander is back, and things are obviously going to get very dramatic over the coming issues. So I'm going to end here. I have some between issues 101 and 155, but when you start getting towards the end of the series, the print runs were lower, and it is much harder to find. They are expensive, so I have a few, not all of them, so I might skip going over 101 through 155, but I do have all the special missions issues, so I might do a separate video on that. Anyway, if you're a fan of G.I. Joe, hopefully you enjoyed this. Cool cover designs on a lot of these. Some not so much, but if you're a kid and you grew up on G.I. Joe, couldn't help but love going through these, and it's kind of neat to go through these now as an adult. Thanks for watching.